There'd be a bigger problem if Mike McDaniel were a journalist. If Mike McDaniel were a journalist, all of his columns would be 10,000 words long before he even got to the point. And it's not a criticism. It is just an acknowledgement that Mike McDaniel is fairly loquacious. All right, we're going to try to be not so loquacious about a variety of topics here. There's a lot of little things to cover. We used to do a whip around segment when we were on NBCSN in the late afternoons, and we would move fairly quickly. We're not going to move quite as quickly, but we're going to hit several different things. And let's start with the Miami Dolphins. Something else McDaniel said as to how he goes about reminding his team that they haven't won a playoff game since the year 2000. Here's what he had to say.
We need to finish the season better. So you get what you emphasize. Well, why not find ways to emphasize finishing in everything you do? Obsess about it. Why not have, for half the offseason, you're trying to have staff meetings at different times during the day, and I had every staff meeting I put like at 7:24 or 3:24 or 5:24, like the number 24. Okay, to you guys it means nothing. That's how many years it's been since the organization's won a playoff game. We are going to hear about that come playoff time. You think? So, to me, you do that to empower guys to know what's coming, to understand it, to not run from it. Because if you're going to achieve success where people are predicting failure, you're going to have to go above and beyond.
There's a subtle genius in what he said, because by expanding it to cover the last 24 years, he's diluting the fact that he's 0-2, that his version of the Dolphins is going to be in a position where it's 3 for 3 and it's focused on him. He's spreading it out so it's not focused on him and on these Dolphins.
It's an organizational failure, Mike, and it is. I mean, they've had 6 playoff losses since that win over the Colts. Peyton Manning's Colts, 23-17 in overtime, and they lost the next one. And then they've had only 5 other playoff appearances since then, and obviously lost all those games. Do you know who the quarterback and the coach were of that team, the last team that won?
I would say it was, was Jimmy Johnson still there? Was it Jay Fiedler and Jimmy Johnson?
It was Dave Wannstedt and Jay Fiedler. Zach Thomas.
Well, I get.
Yeah, Zach Thomas
credit.
and Jason Taylor, the names you recognize, went on to Hall of Fame. They're already in the Hall of Fame, but that's the last time the Dolphins won a playoff game. McDaniel is the 10th coach since then, including interim coaches. They've had 21 starting quarterbacks between Fiedler and Tua, the drafting of Tua. So this has been a long time, Mike, and it is going to be an issue. And if you want to talk specifically about Mike McDaniel's teams, 4-10 in December and January under McDaniel's, they have to be better than 4-10. That includes the postseason if they want to get to where they want to go. And he wants to be back as the head coach of the Dolphins next year, because if it is 3 in a row, they probably are going to look elsewhere for a new head coach, Mike.
That was a point he made on the in-season Hard Knocks last year as December rolled around. They had fallen apart the prior year down the stretch, and they ended up doing the same thing in 2023. We're going to pivot to the UFL. We don't talk about the UFL very much on this show. I've written plenty of things about the Upstart League at PFT. They have a bit of a controversy. Playoff game coming this weekend. Tease Tabor, who was a second-round pick of the Lions back in 2017 and played for 6 different NFL teams before going to first the XFL and then the UFL, because the UFL was the merger of the XFL and the USFL this year. He admits and he embraces that he has targeted the injured ankle of St. Louis Battlehawks quarterback A.J. McCarron. Tabor plays for the San Antonio Brahmas. They played in Week 10, the final week of the regular season. They got into it. They exchanged words. Hot mic. That's one thing I love about the UFL. Plenty of hot mics. McCarron wasn't happy with Tabor. Tabor basically said, I did it and I'll do it again. And they play this weekend in the playoffs, and Tabor has said, I'll do it again. I'm not a dirty player, but the rules are the rules, and I'm going to hit you in that ankle, and he makes no apologies for it. Charean, if this was happening in the NFL, it would be a massive, there'd be letters, there'd be threats, there'd be fines, there would be national news coverage. This is something the NFL hasn't dealt with since the bounty scandal made these things issues that don't get talked about. And from the UFL's perspective, on one hand, boy, this isn't good. On the other hand, I think a lot more people might be watching the Brahmas and the Battlehawks this weekend than would have.
Yeah, no doubt, Mike. He said the quiet part out loud, and it is what teams do. They know what the injuries are. They know what they're targeting. They do this. They do this every single week. It's the quiet part said out loud, but you're not supposed to say it. And that's what Tez Tabor did. He said it out loud, and he said he was targeting A.J. McCarron, and A.J. McCarron did call him a dirty player. Frankly, nothing he did drew a penalty, I don't think. So he wasn't outside the lines, but there's kind of that unspoken part. And he said it. He said exactly what they were doing.
There's a line between the clean legal hit and the dirty play. You can do a clean legal hit in a way that is dirty, that is intended to inflict injury. It falls within the rules, but you know what you're doing, and everyone who's paying attention knows what you're doing. That's the challenge. And during the week, Wade Phillips, the head coach of the Brahmas, who's done a great job getting that team to the playoffs this year, he defended Tabor. And then Tabor comes right back out and says, no, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing it. He's not doing it. Yeah, I'm doing it. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing it. And it really is stunning. But again, if you're the UFL, doesn't hurt the broader business effort, but it would be a major problem if this was happening in the NFL. And I was going to watch the game anyway. I'm far more likely to be interested in that game, and it'll be a big talking point, I would assume, for the coverage of that game this weekend. Again, it's the Battlehawks hosting the Brahmas for a spot in the first ever UFL championship game. Right back to the NFL, and this one came out of the blue yesterday. Chiefs defensive lineman B.J. Thompson had a seizure and then cardiac arrest in meetings during the team's offseason workouts. And the reports were he's in stable condition. But now it's coming out that he's still unconscious after the cardiac arrest. So this is a serious, serious situation for B.J. Thompson and the Kansas City Chiefs. And, it was just kind of like, okay, well, that's scary. Oh, he's in stable condition. That's good. But no, he's stable, but he's also unconscious. So we don't know what the extent of the long-term damage might be.
Yeah, there's worse places to be, Mike, to have cardiac arrest than on the field during a game or at the team facility where there are athletic trainers and doctors sometimes there. I don't know if there were doctors there at that particular time, but they do have great medical care there. So hopefully he's going to be okay and gets out of there, but we'll see. They were supposed to they postponed everything from yesterday to today. So we'll see if the Chiefs have that today based on his condition. So that might tell us something, Mike. If they can't totally cancel it, that's probably not as good a sign as if they actually hold. I guess it's their last mini. I assume this is their mini camp. Some teams have mini camps this week. Some teams have them next week. But we'll see if they have that practice today or if they just cancel that.
Just another strange chapter in what has been a bizarre offseason for the Chiefs. This one's far different than some of the things they've had to endure previously, but it has been a very unusual offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs. Randy Gregory, now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Last year, he was with the Broncos, was traded to the 49ers during the season. He filed a lawsuit earlier this week against both the NFL and the Broncos under the Colorado anti-discrimination statute, arguing that he has multiple disabilities that require him to use a medication that has THC in it. The NFL and the Broncos have failed to properly accommodate his disability, social anxiety disorder, PTSD, severe pain from playing football. They failed to accommodate him by allowing him to take this medication that has THC in it. And the way it works now, because players don't get suspended anymore for THC and marijuana, we assume it's open season, you still get fined. And his argument is very simple. He's had to pay more than $532,000 in fines, but he still has to show up for work. So he's basically working for a lot less than what he should be getting paid under this system where they still let him work. We're just taking away your money. You're not being kept out of the facility, but we're not paying you your money under the NFL's substance abuse policy. I think it's going to be a challenge because the first step for the NFL will be to say you need to go to the collective bargaining agreement. You need to follow those procedures, and it's ultimately resolved in arbitration, not open court. That will be the frontline position. But, there really is kind of a common sense argument to be made here. If this guy has these conditions and that's what's necessary to help him live his life in a productive way, why is it a problem? And if he's allowed to show up for work anyway, why are you taking money out of his pocket for something that isn't affecting his ability to show up for work?
I'll start with Mike. I was a Cowboys beat reporter when Randy Gregory was drafted, and for much of his career, I was there with him. He's one of my favorite all-time player. Like, I truly love Randy Gregory, and this is not something he made up in recent years. This is something he said coming into the league, that he had social anxiety disorder and talked about it. And it would be hard to get interviews with him in the locker room with cameras and all that present. He just didn't want to do it. But you got him by himself, or at training camp, out on the practice field, and just one of the nicest, kindest guys in the NFL. I love Randy Gregory. I do believe that he needs this for his condition. And you think about how much money he has lost in his playing career because he did have to serve the suspensions. There were years that he missed in his career because of his substance abuse. And so, he's gone to obviously multiple facilities to try to get this taken care of. And he's lost a lot of money to this, Mike. But I do believe him because I like him so much when he says he needs it to exist in life.
I wonder how much of this incident that started in March of 2023, the effort to try to get the Broncos and the NFL to work together to accommodate these disabilities, to allow him to use this medication that has THC in it. I wonder how much of it poisoned the relationship between the Broncos and Gregory, because the 49ers aren't sued here. The Buccaneers haven't been sued. He hasn't been there long enough to be fined any of his game salary. But it is a fairly basic argument that Gregory is making. And for as much as they like to say football is family, there are way too many times they get caught up in applying these rules rigidly with no flexibility. Remember the enforcer cover story on Time? I mean, I remember when Roger Goodell became the commissioner in 2006, the attitude toward player disciplinary issues and whether or not things could be resolved, whether there'd be any cooperation, whether there'd be any lenience, that went out the window from the moment he got there, succeeding Paul Tagliabue. And there's a point where the NFL collectively, you regard these guys as human beings and try to work with them. Don't assume somebody's always up to something or trying to get away with something. Work with these guys. It's in your best interest to make sure that your guys are productive. And this is the problem now. Because you can still play, you don't get suspended, we're going to pick your pocket. There's something that doesn't sit well with me about that. Yeah. They're getting the benefit of his employment, but they don't have to pay him for what he's doing. That just seems wrong.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you, Mike. He should get paid for what he's doing on the field, and he's not suspended. He is playing, but yet he's losing money. I don't understand that. So I actually hope he wins this, whether it's an arbitration or the lawsuit or whatever, they come to some settlement, but I do hope he wins.
All right, let's take a break. When we return, the NBA Finals feature a pair of dynamic duos, one for each team, Dallas and Boston. Hey, I know the two teams in the NBA Finals. We will draft the best NFL dynamic duos of all time when we return. That's next here on PFT Live. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.